I know I killed a baby, an angel. She must be in heaven by now.
A woman in France admits to torturing and murdering a beautiful 12-year-old girl, and now she is the first woman in the country to go to prison for life ever.
I ask for forgiveness. What I did is horrible.
I go through the case of Lola Daviet and why her murder was so incredibly horrific. I'm Angenette Levy, and this is Crime Fix. If you ever get hurt, you might need someone in your corner to fight for you, and Morgan & Morgan can do that. The firm has more than 1,000 lawyers on its team because they are big winners. They've recovered more than $25 billion for 500,000 clients. In the last few months, a client in Florida got $12 million after the insurance company offered just $350,000. In Pennsylvania, a client was awarded $26 million. That was 40 times the insurance company's $650,000 offer. Another client in PA got $29 million after being offered $500K. So even if you think your case is not worth millions and millions of dollars, why not start a claim and fight for what you deserve? Morgan & Morgan makes it really easy. You can start a claim in just 8 clicks on your cell phone. So if you're ever hurt, start a claim at forthepeople.com/crimefix or scan that QR code that you see right there on your screen. I have to tell you, this case is absolutely terrible. I want to warn you. What happened to Lola Daviet was so disgusting and beyond the pale. Lola was an absolutely adorable 12-year-old girl. She was the center of her parents' world. But her life, it ended so brutally that it sent an entire nation reeling and sparked outrage. Lola's case takes us to Paris, France, the city of lights, a city known for its beauty. But what happened to Lola there shows us all that can be wrong and dark when it comes to other human beings in this world. Just steps from the front door of Lola's home, there was a gruesome discovery. Her lifeless body was discovered stuffed inside a suitcase. The crime was so horrific and so unimaginable that it shattered France and rewrote its legal history. 27-year-old Dahbia Benkired was convicted of the brutal rape and murder of little Lola, another woman accused of doing this to a little girl. It was an attack carried out in the very place that she should have felt and been the safest, her own home. The story garnered national attention as details emerged, with every revelation becoming more disturbing than the last. Politicians seized every opportunity to twist the tragedy to fit their own agendas, all because Benkired, a migrant from Algeria, shouldn't have been in France in the first place. 2 months before the murder, she'd been ordered to leave the country, but she overstayed her visa. Lola was known for her big heart and bright, sunny spirit, a loving, happy-go-lucky girl who saw the good in everyone and never hesitated to lend a hand. But tragically, those very qualities, her trusting good nature, would allow a monster to take advantage of her. On October 14th, 2022, Lola had just finished up school for the week and was on her way home. The walk normally takes just 2 minutes. So when an hour passed, her parents grew very concerned when she still wasn't home from school yet. The Daviets managed the apartment building operations in exchange for a break on the rent, so the couple had access to security cameras. The young girl's father, Johan, heads to the office to watch surveillance footage, and to his surprise, 45 minutes earlier, Lola enters the apartment building, except she is with someone that doesn't look familiar. He doesn't recognize this woman at all. Lola's parents take screenshots of the surveillance video and contact police. At this point, investigators know Lola successfully made it to the apartment complex at 3:20 p.m., and they have a potential suspect. There is no movement until 11 p.m. when a homeless man comes across a suitcase in the courtyard of the complex. Curious what's inside, he opens it to find a corpse with legs, feet, wrists, and face bound with tape. Lola's family would never, ever be the same. Her mother's final words still echo in her mind. "See you later," as she kissed her daughter goodbye forever. The discovery of her body shifted the investigation from a missing persons case to a murder. Now investigators had a lead from the apartment surveillance cameras. Authorities tracked down other cameras in the surrounding area to establish her path of travel. They discovered that around 4:40 p.m., the suspect placed Lola's body in a trunk and exited the building carrying suitcases. The woman stops at a cafe where cameras capture her sitting calmly at a table with the body inside the suitcase. A patron notices blood coming through her luggage, and when he asks her what it could be, the woman responds by saying she was selling a kidney. Police say an acquaintance picks her up after that with all of her luggage to go to another town. The concerned cafe patron snaps a photo of the license plate. A few hours later, she arrives back at the building in a taxi, but after noticing police in the area, she ditches the suitcases and flees. The next day, 27-year-old Dahbia Benkired was arrested. Police found a pair of scissors, an oyster knife, and an IKEA knife in her flat with traces of blood. Now, remember that friend who gave her a ride from the cafe? Well, police used that license plate photo to track down the getaway driver. A 43-year-old was detained so investigators could find out if he was involved in the crime. He cooperated with authorities and was later released. The investigation uncovered that Benkired was actually in hiding. In August 2022, 2 months before the murder, she was stopped without a residence permit at a French airport, which resulted in the issuance of an OQFT. A QTF, transcribed in English as obligation to leave French territory, is an administrative order issued by French immigration authorities. Authorities gave her 30 days to leave the country, but instead, Benkired crashed at her sister's, which happened to be the very apartment building Lola resided with her family in. During an interrogation, Benkired confessed to luring Lola at the entrance gate of the complex by asking her for help with her suitcases. Lola was hesitant at first, but proceeded to assist her to the 6th floor. In that moment, Benkired decided she was going to harm the little girl that so kindly helped her. Once Lola was in the apartment, Benkired asked her to undress and take a shower. I'm not going to get into more details about how graphic this sexual assault was, but after Lola performed the sex act, Benkired slammed the girl's head into the shower wall. Lola died from suffocation, but her body showed signs of mutilation by a knife, at least 38 wounds, with at least 2 blows with scissors perforating her rib cage. The injuries suggested this 12-year-old suffered unimaginably. She was tortured. The medical examiner's report stated that she was raped, both anally and vaginally, while she was still alive. When investigators reminded Benkired what she did to Lola with autopsy photos, she remained stoic and unaffected. So investigators found it strange when she provided various motives for the attack. At first, she described she acted out of anger that the victim's mother had refused to give her an entry pass for the building, which now in retrospect is astonishing given that she had multiple reasons why she shouldn't have been at the apartment complex that day at all. Text messages recovered from Benkired's phone revealed she was exchanging explicit messages with her ex-partner the day of the attack. Benkired revealed it angered her so much that she wanted to hurt someone. 15 minutes after that argument, Benkired crossed paths with Lola as she was coming home from school. Benkired claims that she saw a ghost in Lola, and investigators found she conducted searches online into witchcraft days before the murder, too. The numbers 0 and 1 were written on Lola's feet, written in red ink, according to the Washington Post, which obtained the autopsy report. She gave specific facts, and investigators were able to use that to rule out premeditation. Officials charged Benkired with murder and rape of a minor under the age of 15 involving acts of torture and extreme violence. While in custody, she banged her head against the wall and shaved her head. She transferred to a psychiatric unit for difficult patients. Benkired was ordered to undergo mental health evaluations, and experts who evaluated her mental health noted her manipulative behavior, but concluded she does not suffer from any major psychotic illness, so she must be held criminally responsible for her crimes. A judge ruled her fit to stand trial, and for 3 years, she was held in a prison just south of Paris. Despite Benkired's confession to these crimes, the trial began on October 17th of this year to determine motive, intent, and the circumstances. French law requires a full trial before the courts, the chamber that hears the most serious cases, before a sentencing ruling is made. Prosecutors claim that Benkired slashed Lola's throat with scissors and a box cutter before taping her face with duct tape, which ultimately led to her death by asphyxiation. Experts testified that little Lola undoubtedly suffered given its anxiety-inducing aspects, physical, psychological, and emotional suffering. On the second day of the trial, Benkired took the stand in her own defense and spoke For the first time about the murder. On the stand, she described growing up in a dysfunctional family, spending time between Algeria and France with unloving aunts and an abusive father. At the age of 14, she said she was sexually abused regularly. Benkired also told the jury that she felt good smoking 20 joints a day. The day of the murder, she took Lyrica, a medication used for the treatment of neuropathic pain, epilepsy, and anxiety disorders, something she openly admits she was taking to try and cope with trauma caused from being a prostitute. Now, we're using our Law and Crime AI technology to recreate part of the court proceedings. Here is Benkired.
I took revenge on the little girl. She was a weaker person than me. I didn't choose her. It came suddenly. Since I had raped her, I might as well kill her. To tell you the truth, the day before, I had taken 3 Lyrica tablets, and that's what put me in this state. The next day, I lost it.
Before the guilty verdict, Benkired asked for forgiveness.
I ask for forgiveness. What I did is horrible. That's all I have to say.
The prosecutor poured cold water on Benkired's explanation.
Make no mistake, no drug treatment can fundamentally transform Ms. Benkired's personality. When there is no illness, there is no treatment.
The crowds outside the trial were incredibly unforgiving, upset that this child killer did not get the death penalty. The judge sentenced Benkired to life in prison. She will not be able to apply for parole until the year 2052. Lola's mother and brother sobbed in an embrace in the courthouse, but the family's tragedy, it didn't end with Lola. Her father drank himself to death in February of 2024. Before his death, it was reported that Lola's father left a note on the door of the apartment where Benkired's sister lived. It read, "My darling, I still don't understand why there was so much cruelty and barbarity towards you. You were so kind. I can't wait to see you again. Signed, your dad who loves you for life." So to discuss this case, I want to bring in Dr. Daniel Bober. He's a forensic psychiatrist. And, Dr. Bober, I always bring you on to talk about these horrific cases. I can never get my head around these cases. I don't understand what drives somebody, specifically a woman, to torture and sexually assault a 12-year-old girl, this beautiful little girl named Lola. So what do you see as far as you can tell? What on earth was going on with this woman who's now been sentenced to a rare life term in France?
Well, Angenette, it's an unusual case for many reasons. One, you don't usually see these offenders as women, so that's a statistical rarity.
Hmm.
As you said, she did receive a whole life sentence in France, which is also very rare. And 3 psychiatric experts examined her and did not really find any clear motive. They basically opined that she was narcissistic, that she suffered from psychopathic traits, was manipulative, cold, callous, and basically had a need for domination. And if you look at the nature of the crime, which is sexual violence, that's very often associated with power and control. So there are a lot of things that are really odd about this case that don't fit the typical picture.
Very much so. And that's what I don't get. I don't get how somebody goes from zero to this. And that's why I kind of wonder, is this the first time this woman has done something like this? She was from Algeria, she was in France. She wasn't supposed to be in France. She was supposed to be out of the country, but she wasn't. So that sparked this whole immigration debate and really fired up the people on the right there in France, who have said, we need to tighten immigration laws and things like that. But you're telling me that this Dahbia Benkired, this is she's 24 years old, and this is the first time she does something like this. She takes this adorable little 12-year-old girl and lures her into an apartment and commits this heinous act against her, or acts against her, and at 24 years old.
It's very strange, and there doesn't seem to be any obvious trigger. I had read something about the fact that her mother denied her a building pass, and that was this some sort of narcissistic injury that was projected onto the daughter, where the daughter was murdered as revenge against the mother for denying her a building pass, which obviously would seem like an extremely disproportionate response to the situation. And maybe this woman had some prior history of violence or prior history of trauma that caused her to react in this way. We just don't know a lot about her background. But these types of things don't often occur in isolation. There are very often genetic factors, experiences that people have, whether it be trauma or something else, that lays the groundwork for this to occur.
Let's unpack the psychiatric part about this whole case a little bit. Um, she was deemed to have psychopathic traits. We kind of know a little bit about that, but for viewers who may not know exactly what that means, explain to me what psychopathic traits could mean.
So psychopathic traits can mean people who lack empathy, they lack remorse, they're cold, they don't feel any connection to other human beings. They see them as objects that are essentially there for their manipulation. They're basically the worst of the worst. You know, there's overlap between people who are so-called antisocial and people who are psychopathic. But psychopaths are the people, you know, that we read about. You know, Ted Bundy, John Wayne Gacy. I mean, these are really the people that are the sickest, that prey upon society and do it without remorse, without empathy, without guilt.
And let's talk about the narcissistic traits. I mean, the narcissistic traits, I think about that as somebody who's very self-centered, where everything's basically all about them. But is there more to that?
Yeah, so narcissistic people are, is everything you just said. They're very often people who have an inflated sense of self-worth. They're always first. They're very often thin-skinned. They will react very harshly to criticism, and they are essentially, you know, very empty people, right? They have a very fragile sense of self, and anything can set them off. And so, very often, they will compensate by seeming, you know, having this inflated sense of self in public, and will make huge displays. And they do this because deep down, they're actually very insecure, feel very inadequate about themselves, and compensate for that. They'll very often compensate for that by outwardly seeming like they are the most important thing, and they will often sweep aside other people's feelings.
It's just, but the cruelness that the cruelty that she inflicted upon Lola, all of that coupled together, I just don't, none of what we are going to be able to talk about is going to explain any of it. But this was a little girl, and this is a little girl who suffered greatly. She was duct taped. She was sexually assaulted.
She was tortured. Yeah.
She was tortured. She was tortured. And so are we to possibly think that maybe this woman got some kind of pleasure out of harming a beautiful little girl?
It would seem now, whether if it was for its own, whether the act itself was the pleasure, or whether she was taking pleasure out of some sort of sense of revenge towards mom. You know, she preyed upon the most innocent creature in the world, right? A small child who could not defend herself, who was completely defenseless. And so that's really the part that is the most disturbing. That as an adult, as a woman, you would think that there would be some connection for this child, some sense of caring, of protection, but she did the very opposite.
Yeah, it's just horrific. And then, Lola, her father, is just so devastated by this. He starts drinking again. He passes away. I mean, it's just, this is a tragedy on so many different levels. This woman, I hate to even use her name. She's a monster. Was quoted as telling the court, I ask for forgiveness, and what I did was horrible, or what I did is horrible. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, I mean,
That
I
right
think
there, it just shows
she's
like a lack of connection, like a
it's
lack of,
it's robotic, right? It's robotic. She knows that's what she's supposed to say, but there's no feeling, there's no connection in those words. It doesn't really mean anything. She's saying what she's told by her lawyers that she needs to say, but she clearly doesn't feel it. And the worst part about it is she doesn't have really any feelings towards the little girl. There's really complete indifference. And that just shows the coldness, the callousness of the crime. And it's very disturbing.
This says to me that this woman really isn't sorry. She's not sorry. She doesn't care. And I'm trying to think of like how somebody gets to this point. Would you say she probably isn't sorry? And it's just for you to even be able to do something like this to a little girl, to any other human being, it's just like there's just some kind of level of like coldness, iciness,
And cruelty. Yeah.
dissociation. I don't know what you would call it.
It really makes me want to know more about her history and what got her to this point of just complete indifference to the feelings of other people, right? It just seems hard for me to believe that one day she woke up and she was like this, and this was her first act of cruelty. There had to be some events that led up to this. Remember, the sentence that she got in France is basically reserved for the worst of the worst, terrorism suspects. And so that really just gives you an idea of the seriousness and the cruelty and just the absolute brutality of this crime. So I have to wonder, looking more into her background, even just for purposes of research to try to understand what led her to become this person and act this way. Genetics, environment, history of trauma, substance use. But, these three psychiatric experts who examined her did not find any evidence of mental illness outside these malignant personality traits and this character pathology.
And that's what's so disturbing here, is that there could be people like this, and we know there are, just walking among us. And, there are people who will commit crimes who are like this, and they're just out there among the public. And what's so sad about it is that you may not be able to spot them because they have a mask. They're just out there. It's like evil walking among us, Dr. Bober.
Completely. These are people that you pass that are walking through the mall. They're walking down the street next to you and you don't even know it. And, unusually in this case, this was a woman. Most of the time they're men. So it really makes you feel very uneasy and on edge, living in a world where there are people like this walking around who are experts at blending in, who know the things that they're supposed to say to appear, quote unquote, normal and civilized, and that this is what is lurking below the surface.
Well, it is absolutely heinous. And that beautiful little girl, Lola, I hope she rests in peace. What was done to her is so beyond horrific. And I don't know how her family gets through this. Just a beautiful, beautiful girl. And that woman is exactly where she belongs, in prison. And hopefully she never gets out. I know it's a 30-year sentence in France, but she's where she belongs, because I don't think she can be trusted to never do this again, to not harm somebody else.
I agree.
Dr. Daniel Bober, thank you for your time, as always.
Thank you, Angenette.
In an interview with the media, Lola's mother shares that she always knew how to make friends. She was very sociable and very attentive, and her brother created a slideshow in tribute to his sister. He said she was the smallest in the family. There she was, very small, and I was already taking care of her. We shared everything together as children, even our own bedroom. We often argued, even every day, like brothers and sister. She was very shy with people she didn't know, but also very kind, sometimes too much so. With our 6-year age gap, we didn't have the same interests, but we both loved being together at home with our parents. She was passionate about gymnastics. I found her very strong. She was a true champion. What I liked most was when she came to watch me play soccer. I miss those times. My little sister will always be alive in my heart. Well, in our hearts. Lola was a beautiful, beautiful young child, and her parents have made it clear that they did not at all want her death used for any type of political gain. And that's it for this episode of Crime Fix. I'm Angenette Levy. Thanks so much for being with me. I'll see you back here next time.